Hey 308. I found this really great book. It's called Liberty, How the Revolutionary War Began, and it deals with some of the topics that you guys are researching. So I'm just going to read an excerpt. I'm not going to read the whole book because some of it is related to other topics. But there was something about the Boston Tea Party, and I know many of you picked that. So I'm going to read it quickly, and then I'll show you the text and also the illustrations so you can get a better sense of what's happening. So the title is Rally Mohawks. The whisper went around on December 16th, 1773. Boston Harbor a teapot tonight. Everyone who heard the whisper looked out over the water. 3 British ships, full with 90,000 pounds of tea, were riding peacefully at anchor. After the Boston Massacre, British Parliament had repealed, which means taken back, the Townshend Acts, except for the tax on tea. Tea was the only British product that the Americans still refused to buy. Their boycott had helped drive the British East India Company, which imported the tea, to the verge of bankruptcy, which means they were almost about to go under as a business. So the British Prime Minister, Lord North, had granted the British East India Company a monopoly on the American tea trade. That means no one else could do it, only they were allowed. If Americans had no other choice, he thought, they would give up and buy British tea eventually. Americans were outraged. If Britain could grant a monopoly on tea, then they could grant monopolies on everything the colonies needed. After a fiery protest meeting, a group of colonists dressed up as Indians. They disguised their faces with coal dust and paint, stuck feathers in their hats, and marched 2 by 2 down to the waterfront. At the wharf, that's like where the harbor, right? They divided into 3 groups and boarded the tea ships. The sailors handed over the keys without a fight, and the Indians, remember they were colonists dressed up like Indians, got to work. They hoisted the heavy chests of tea on deck, split each one open, and dumped the loose tea overboard. Then they slipped away. When the sun rose the next morning, piles of tea could be seen floating on the tide. This incident became known as the Boston Tea Party. A song about it was sung throughout the colonies. I don't know the melody, so I'll just read it to you like a poem. Rally Mohawks, bring out your axes, and tell King George we'll pay no taxes on his foreign tea. And it says, as each Indian, remember in quotes, left the tea ships, a guard searched him to make sure he hadn't stolen any tea. One man had stuffed his pockets with tea leaves. The tea and the man's hat and wig was thrown into Boston Harbor. The children of Boston, whose fathers came home very late with painted faces and feathers in their hats, always remembered the night of the Boston Tea Party. It was a wonderful story to tell their own children and grandchildren. The morning after the Boston Tea Party, men went out in small boats and beat the piles of tea down with paddles to make it unusable. So they actually pushed it under the water so it wouldn't float up, so no one could get it. So that's kind of this page here. And I'll send a copy of this text soon. And then I want to read the caption underneath this illustration. Admiral John Montagu, the commander of the British warships anchored in the harbor, was spending the night in a house on the wharf. When the Indians began marching back to town, he opened his window and called, "Well, boys, you've had a fine, pleasant evening, but mind, you'll have to pay the fiddler yet." An Indian yelled back, "Come down, squire, and we'll settle up in 2 minutes." The admiral slammed his window shut. So there's a little more information about the Boston Tea Party. I'm sorry, someone's leaving comments and you can hear it and it's really irritating. Stop. All right, hopefully this is helpful. I will try to find more resources for you guys too. Good luck. See you later.